In September 1985, ABC launched a family sitcom set in Huntington, Long Island, about a psychiatrist who works from home so his wife can go back to her career as a reporter. Growing Pains ran for 7 seasons. It made Kirk Cameron the biggest teen heartthrob in America. It gave a 15-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio one of his first roles. And behind the warm family comedy, there were stories the audience had no idea about. Eating disorders, religious transformation, depression, a death that left the entire cast in shock, and a career that became one of the most extraordinary in Hollywood history. This is the cast of Growing Pains, then and now. Jason Seaver was the warm, slightly exasperated psychiatrist at the center of the Seaver family, a man who listened to other people's problems for a living and then came home to a household full of problems of his own. Alan Thicke played him across all 7 seasons with a genuine paternal warmth that made Jason Seaver feel like the kind of father audiences actually wanted. What audiences didn't know was how much had happened before Growing Pains. Thicke was not just an actor. He was a songwriter who had written the theme songs for Different Strokes, The Facts of Life, and Wheel of Fortune. He had hosted his own Canadian talk show. Jason Seaver was the role that finally introduced him to the American mainstream. After the show, Thicke remained a constant television presence. Guest appearances, Fuller House, This Is Us. His son Robin became one of the biggest pop stars in the world. On December 13, 2016, Alan Thicke was playing ice hockey with his 19-year-old son Carter at a rink in Burbank, California. He collapsed on the ice. He was rushed to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, where surgeons attempted emergency open heart surgery. He died 3 hours after the tear in his aorta first opened. His last words to Carter, as Carter would later describe, had been about a shot his son had made on the ice. A compliment, warm and offhand, the kind of thing a father says without knowing it will be the last thing.
What was that moment like?
That was kind of a moment of relief for me. That's why obviously how that day ended was quite a shock. The ambulance came and the paramedics had stabilized him and everything seemed fine. He was back to joking.
His son Robin said, "He was the best man I ever knew, the best friend I ever had." The cast reunited at his memorial in Santa Barbara. Joanna Kerns, Kirk Cameron, Tracey Gold, Jeremy Miller, the Seaver family, together one last time for the man who had been their father. Jason Seaver always knew what to say. Alan Thicke, in the end, said exactly the right thing. Mike Seaver was the show's engine, the handsome, charming, permanently scheming eldest Seaver son who cared about girls and very little else. He was the reason teenage girls across America tuned in every week. Kirk Cameron was 15 years old when the show began, and within 2 seasons, he had become the most talked about young actor on American television. Cameron was, at the height of the show's popularity, everything a network could want from a teen star. People magazine covers, millions of fan letters, a poster that sold across the country. He played Mike Seaver with enough genuine comic energy that the character was more than just a pretty face. And then, at 17 years old, midway through the show's run, Kirk Cameron became a born-again Christian. The transformation was, by his own account, total. He pushed for changes to the scripts. He objected to storylines he considered morally problematic. He had his co-star Julie McCullough, who played Mike's girlfriend, fired from the show because according to reports, he had discovered she had posed for Playboy, which he considered incompatible with the show's values.
What was it that helped you find God? Were you looking for something to hold on to?
I was just always intrigued with questions like, where do we come from?
Who knew Mike Seaver was having these thoughts on the set of Growing Pains?
Yeah, I was wondering where the muffins were that day.
And so I met someone who took me to church, and I heard a great message.
After the show ended, Cameron built an entirely different kind of career. Christian films, evangelical television, a ministry called The Way of the Master. He starred in Fireproof in 2008, grossing $33 million on a $500,000 budget. He has been married since 1991 to Chelsea Noble, who played Mike's girlfriend Kate on the show. They have 6 children, 4 of whom are adopted. The heartthrob became a preacher, and the preacher never became anyone else. Mike Seaver always had a plan. Kirk Cameron's plan turned out to be one that surprised everyone. Carol Seaver was the brains of the family, the honor student, the overachiever, the one who worked hard while her brother Mike coasted on charm. Tracey Gold played her with an intelligence and warmth that made Carol one of the show's most beloved characters. What the audience didn't know was what was happening to Tracey Gold off camera. Gold had her first struggle with anorexia at 12. When she joined Growing Pains, the writers began incorporating fat jokes about Carol into scripts, impossible to separate from jokes about her own body. The producers told her she needed to lose weight. A doctor put her on 500 calories a day. When people complimented her on how she looked, she restricted further. By 1992, she weighed under 90 pounds and missed the last 3 episodes of the show.
When you make fun of Carol Seaver, you make fun of Tracey Gold because it's my body. And so I would like negotiate with them. So that was a tough time. I would sort of dread getting a script and being like, how many jokes are going to be in there? And there'd be like some, I'd be like, all right, I can handle that. And then others, I'd be like, please take it out. It hurts my feelings so bad. And they just didn't really get it, to be honest with you.
Recovery took years. She married Roby Marshall in 1994, starred in a television film called For the Love of Nancy, playing a young woman battling anorexia, and wrote a memoir about her experience in 2003. In September 2004, there was a second chapter. Driving home from a barbecue with her family, Gold rolled her SUV off a California freeway. Her 7-year-old son, Sage, suffered a broken clavicle. She was arrested for felony DUI, pleaded guilty, and received 3 years probation. She has not appeared on screen since 2016. Carol Seaver was the one who always did the right thing. Tracey Gold's life turned out to be more complicated than that and more honest. Ben Seaver was the youngest Seaver sibling for most of the show's run, the one who idolized his troublemaking older brother Mike. Jeremy Miller was 9 years old when the show began, which means he spent the most formative years of his life entirely on television, growing up in front of an audience of millions. Miller has spoken in interviews about the disorienting experience of transitioning from child star to adult in an industry with no further use for him in the same capacity. After the show ended, he struggled to find a footing. What he has been most open about is his struggle with alcohol. Miller disclosed in interviews that he had been battling alcoholism for years, a battle affecting his relationships and career. He spoke about it with the directness of someone who has done the work of recovery.
Jeremy's alcohol abuse started at a very early age. You had your first drink at 4?
Yeah, my grandparents were social drinkers, 33, 34 area. Things had been bad for a real long time by that point. Probably a good solid 6 years of being a full blackout drunk all day, having to wake up in the morning, needing that drink in the morning. Not wanting a drink, having to have a drink just to be able to move.
Jeremy Miller is 49 years old in 2026. He is in recovery and continues to appear at fan events. Ben Seaver grew up on screen. Jeremy Miller did his growing up afterward, in private, and did it the hard way. Maggie Seaver was the mother, the journalist who had gone back to her career and left Jason to run the household, whose warmth and competence anchored every scene she was in. Joanna Kerns played her for 7 seasons as a woman who was fully herself. Not just a mother, but a person with a career and a life that extended beyond her children. Kerns brought to Maggie a professionalism and groundedness that gave the show its emotional center. She and Alan Thicke had considered dating when first cast together and agreed not to, reasoning that if things went wrong, it could destroy the working relationship they were building. They remained close friends for the rest of Thicke's life. After the show, Kerns pivoted substantially toward directing television films, episodes across multiple series. She introduced Tracey Gold to the man Gold would eventually marry. Today, Joanna Kerns is 73 years old and remains active in television production. Maggie Seaver kept the family together. Joanna Kerns built a second career behind the camera as substantial as the one in front of it. Luke Brower arrived in the 7th and final season of Growing Pains, a homeless teenager taken in by the Seaver family after Mike discovers him living at the school. Leonardo DiCaprio was 16 years old. He had appeared in commercials and small roles, but nothing that had made him famous. A BC added him to appeal to teenage female viewers. It didn't save the ratings, but it launched a career that became one of the most celebrated in the history. DiCaprio was, by Joanna Kerns' account, intelligent and disarming for his age, and mischievous on set. He left the show before the final episode to film This Boy's Life opposite Robert De Niro. He chose the film. The choice was correct. What's Eating Gilbert Grape earned him his first Academy Award nomination at 19. Romeo plus Juliet, Titanic, The Departed, The Wolf of Wall Street, The Revenant, for which he finally won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 2016, his 5th nomination. He is also one of the most prominent environmental activists in Hollywood, funding climate research through the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. Luke Brower was the kid who arrived with nothing and found a family. Leonardo DiCaprio arrived on Growing Pains with nothing and found an audience of billions. Boner Stabone was Mike Seaver's best friend, loyal, funny, always available for whatever scheme Mike was hatching.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Are you nuts? That's horrible. But I thought that's what you were after. Boner hitting on your sister's best friend is totally uncool.
Andrew Koenig played him across 25 episodes, the son of Walter Koenig, who had played Chekhov on Star Trek. He gave the show one of its most reliably comic supporting presences. After Growing Pains, Koenig worked in smaller roles and moved toward directing and editing. He was a serious, thoughtful person, an environmental activist and advocate for Myanmar refugees. What his family and friends knew, and what the public was only beginning to understand by early 2010, was that Andrew Koenig had been struggling with depression for most of his adult life. In February 2010, he traveled to Vancouver to visit friends. He gave away some of his most prized possessions before he left. He cleared out his apartment. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, he was last seen by friends in Vancouver. He did not return. His parents flew to Vancouver. On February 25th, Andrew Koenig was found in Stanley Park. He had died by suicide. He was 41 years old. His father stood at a press conference and said, "My son took his own life. He was obviously in a lot of pain." And then, if you are one of those people who can't handle it anymore, know that people out there really care. Talk to somebody.
My son took his own life. He was obviously in a lot of pain. If you can learn anything from this, it's that there are people out there who really care. Before you make that final decision, check it out again. Talk to somebody.
Boner Stabone was always there when Mike needed him. Andrew Koenig spent his life showing up for causes bigger than himself. Chrissy Seaver was the youngest Seaver child, added to the show as a baby, aged rapidly when ratings needed a boost, and eventually played by Ashley Johnson from season 5 onward. Johnson was 8 years old when she took over the role and held it through the final season with a natural ease that made Chrissy feel like she had always been there. Ashley Johnson became a voice actor of extraordinary range and impact. She voiced Ellie in The Last of Us, one of the most celebrated video game performances in the history of the medium, brought to life with a vulnerability and toughness that won her awards and critical acclaim.
I played Ellie in the first and the second game, so it's special for me to play the mother of this character that I care so deeply about. Filming the actual scene and that whole attack, I mean, that stunt woman was unbelievable. You are acting to a certain extent of like, I'm scared, but I actually felt scared.
She appeared in the HBO television adaptation from 2023 in a supporting role while Bella Ramsey played the younger Ellie, a casting choice that honored her original performance. In 2026, Ashley Johnson is 42 years old and one of the most respected voice actors in American entertainment. Chrissy Seaver was the youngest, the one everyone underestimated. Ashley Johnson became the one whose voice stayed with audiences longest. Growing Pains ran from September 24th, 1985 to April 25th, 1992. 7 seasons, 166 episodes. It made a heartthrob out of a 15-year-old from California, gave a homeless teenager from Los Angeles his first break, and put a family psychiatrist from Canada in living rooms across America. Alan Thicke fell on an ice rink and never got up. Andrew Koenig walked into a park in Vancouver and didn't come back. And in between those two losses is a cast that has lived with the weight of those stories, alongside everything else. Kirk Cameron preaches, Tracey Gold has been honest about the hardest years of her life, Jeremy Miller is in recovery and talks about it, Leonardo DiCaprio has an Oscar, and Ashley Johnson gave a video game teenager a voice that millions of people carry with them. That was the cast of Growing Pains, then and now.